The White House has proposed new rules that would force airlines to refund checked bag fees if they lose the luggage. Man, Obama really is just watching the clock and counting down the days. This guy went from taking out bin Laden to going after Southwest. Also, former Major League Baseball pitcher Curt Schilling announced that he plans to run for Senate as a Republican against Massachusetts Democrat Elizabeth Warren, which will make for the saddest old-timers day in baseball history. A new study suggests that Hispanic children are more open to the idea of smoking than other children. The study was conducted by the Donald J. Trump Institute of Bigly Information. Everybody already knows, of course. Russian President Vladimir Putin has released a new 2017 calendar featuring pinups of him cuddling a kitten, riding a horse, and wearing a wetsuit. Putin apparently knows something the rest of us don't, though, because it lists June 14th as President Trump's birthday. The head of one of the largest police organizations in the U.S. has apologized for historical mistreatment of minorities, calling it a, quote, dark side of our shared history. I mean, a black eye. I mean, we're red-faced. Look, we're really embarrassed, okay? And finally, the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City closed for good last week. The casino was forced to close after allegations that it grabbed the Tropicana right by the Borgata. Trump vs. Hillary starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. Just a little bit of music and some flashing lights for the older people in the crowds. That's right, because not only was Pole Position a video game, it was an awful Saturday morning animated series. But that is the title of the episode, Pole Position, because we want to dive into some of the polling. Welcome to Trump versus Hillary. I am your moderator, Christian Bladt, at ChristianDMZ. Joining us, special guest, return guest, yes, our house guest, Michael Hausum, on Twitter at MPHouse. Say hello to the people, Michael.
Buenos dias.
Yes. And down at the other end of the desk, the one, the only, Stephen Helmkamp, on Twitter at Stephen Helmkamp. Only good if he verifies you or accepts you, but you're still on there.
Yeah, have some people pending. I gotta vet them first.
Okay. Hey, deep vetting, extreme vetting. And we mix things up, and they're calling themselves the Couch of Ascent. Scott Moore at S-Man80. That's Drexel Heard at Drexel Heard. And also an unseen guest here in the studio is a temperature reading of about 120 degrees. I'm so glad I wore a sport coat today. It's brutal. By the way, not with us today, Chelsea Galicia.
Speaking of hot.
Yeah, thank you. Caliente.
Steven said that. I was just the ventriloquist.
Yeah, you were just passing it along.
Very beautiful woman.
Chelsea Galicia, not here because she's a bad hombre. That's actually a fact. I don't know if you knew that.
That's deplorable.
Can I just lead out with something real quick?
I'm afraid, but sure. No, go ahead.
Well, I think it's really important. I think a lot of our audience has seen Mr. Drexel Heard and I go back and forth, and it's been pretty tense on some of these episodes. So I just wanted to make amends and make peace with you. And while I was in Vegas this past weekend, I got you a little gift to just say that. I hope that we can
very nervous.
Concede
I hope
to one another, and whoever wins.
I hope it's your ballot saying you're voting for Hillary Clinton.
That's
all I want.
If it's a red hat, you could hang on to it.
Right. It's fresh from the Trump Tower Hotel, Las Vegas. Your own travel tube of body lotion.
Made in China.
For you, sir.
I'd be like, please let us know.
I'm sorry, it actually says made in Canada.
Yeah.
Not made in America. Not surprising, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Trump is making Canada great again, as we all know. Look, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, and we've got the guys here at the desk because the last time Michael was here, we gave both he and Steven probably the worst seat microphone combination we ever did to anybody. So we wanted to make it up to them. These guys don't care. These guys are tough. And you know what? That's right. We could have done it out in the hallway and then would have actually felt a lot better. But, Scott, what I want to do with the whole pole position theme, I wanted to start off talking about some of the polling. And I figure I'll let you take the lead and some of the ones you find more interesting, and then we can sort of go from there. So what are we looking at? Are we looking at a 40-point lead for Evan McMullin, or is that not the case?
Well, you know what? I mean, we did have Sarah on last week, who's the...
By the way, Michael follows Sarah and said she's hysterical. So,
she is. Yeah. I've known her for many years. But, I mean, the thing is Evan really has come from behind, and he is really
Well, I read that
in Utah.
In Utah, a
Yeah.
lot of LDS they find Trump to be deplorable.
Deplorable, exactly.
And they're not going to vote for Hillary, but they're like, no, this is a guy we can vote for. So yeah, I think that vote getting out, and they get out, by the way.
They do.
feel an obligation
They
to
absolutely
get
do.
out and vote. So yeah, I think we could see some, in Utah, realistically, in Utah, we could see some sizable turnout for him.
Yeah, I mean the population there is 60% Mormon, so if you get everyone out, and there's a really good chance he's really come from behind, and there's a chance that he might actually take the state, which would be the first time since 1968 since a third-party candidate has actually won a state's electoral.
But no offense to Sarah, let's talk about candidates who actually have a chance of winning, winning the whole thing. So what are we looking at with like the RCP average and some of the the leading polls? We don't need the InfoWars poll. We don't need the online poll, but what are you seeing, Scott?
Well, right now the RCP average is around +5, +5.5 lead for Hillary right now. And
so outside of the margin of error.
Yep. So pretty much most of the polling is showing that she's got a pretty good lead. I mean, we can go from the ABC poll that has her 12 ahead.
I did want to talk about
other
that.
ones have a little bit closer. Even Rasmussen now has her ahead by a point or two.
What do you think? I'll start with you, and we'll kind of go around. What do you think contributes to a poll that all of a sudden shows someone leading by 12%? Now, obviously, it can definitely be, but is that something to do with the sample size, or why would that be so different? It's not like she's leading by 7%. She's leading by 12.
Right.
So what do you think tends to account for that?
There's a few that are double digit, and again, sample size does play a role,
Sure.
and who you're targeting, and kind of getting rid of the background noise and everything that ends up getting into some of these polls. But I really do realistically think, and some people do say, that there's a greater chance for her to have a larger win than for Trump to have come back and win. Is essentially the odds.
Yeah,
are
it's a
greater
greater
for her.
percentage of her to win as a landslide than
exactly.
for him to win
at all. Yeah, like
Right.
to him to squeak out like
Exactly.
Well, the Vegas odds were like 5-1, I think.
5-1 for Hillary.
Yeah.
So did you put like 5 large on
No,
Hill?
I spent it all on roulette.
But what it's going to come
See,
down.
that's a bad bet.
You don't want to admit that.
I actually won. Lost a
you.
little, came back.
But what it's going to come down to is the states, and that's really because it's really 50 states. So each state is going to be the one that are going to be deciding. And for most of the time, the battleground states now Arizona. I mean, if you look at the RCP average, it's crazy. Texas is a battleground.
I saw that.
Well, it's leaning.
Donald Trump has
leaning
brought
red.
states into play that have not been, and he promised that he would do that.
Yeah, exactly.
He brought them-
Just not
yeah.
Utah.
He
and
Just not
Texas.
brought
the
them into
ones
play
that
for Hillary,
Republicans wanted to be
Exactly.
in
The
play.
ones that are in play are states like Texas and Georgia and Arizona, places that have not gone Democratic in some places in 20 years. I mean, Arizona has only gone twice since Harry Truman, since the end of World War II, in 1948 and then 96. And Arizona's now in play and could likely go to
What's
Democrats.
Arizona got against Bob Dole? Come on. Man was a war hero. But let me turn to Michael. When you hear, all of these poll numbers, I mean, obviously, anyone who knows you are not a Trump guy, but
Not a Trump guy.
you certainly know people who are.
Right.
You know the never Hillarys that are the always Trump, no matter what
Right.
what they find out about him.
Right.
What are people saying about these polls? Is it that all these polls are fixed, the election's rigged, like Donald Trump says, or are they actually like, we're a little worried? Or
A couple of things. My not being a fan of Trump is not because I didn't want him to win me over. I was open to it, certainly all the way along.
when we started the show in July, I think there were a lot of people that were willing to be won over.
Right.
And then there have been so many things that have just made it difficult. I'm not saying that no one has been won over. You just don't see as much of it as you thought. Like, oh, look at that bounce right after the campaign.
Exactly.
After the convention.
The look on my face was kind of like Glenn on Sunday night in terms of what I was expecting to happen over this.
That's a zombie show reference, right?
That is a reference to Walking Dead, right?
Spoiler alert.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, God. Come on. Isn't it a 24-hour rule for that stuff?
Hey, I don't know. I don't watch it, so I don't like zombies or dragons. I don't watch that. I don't watch Game of Thrones. But this is
Well,
not
we're
the time to
talking
talk
about
that.
Hillary and Trump. there's
Yeah.
kind of a connection there, isn't there? Maybe.
Which one's the zombie? Which one's the dragon?
All right. So, yeah, Grandma's up 5-6 points, whatever.
Okay.
The same that she was back in January. I mean, essentially, nothing has changed. I mean, there's been some changes up and down.
No, but I mean, you look at it now, we're basically where
we were because of two people on the planet Earth that people didn't have to spend any time thinking about, gosh, who is this person?
That's a
It would
good
be
point.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Nobody said, you know what, I'm going to tune in. It's this third debate, and who is this Hillary Clinton person? And who is this Donald? Nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
My perception about the poll stuff, the reason why people are fighting that, at least on the Republican side, is some sort of, well, Dewey Truman reference.
Sure.
However, if a campaign is pulling out Dewey Truman references with 2 weeks left, that's not a position of
No,
strength.
it is not.
And part of the variation that you were mentioning is, the pollsters will make adjustments to even the population that they have because they understand that women are going to vote slightly more, there's slightly more Democrats, and the polling sample itself might not represent what they expect the electorate itself to look like. So there's going to be some jiggering with that. I got into an argument just this afternoon with somebody that was asserting flat out all the polls are rigged, Trump's going to win.
Was it Kurt Schlichter?
No, it was not.
But I felt like it was a good bet.
It was a good, and I don't believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
ABC
No,
and NBC
I mean,
and these
the
folks,
idea that
they want
every
to come up
poll
with the
is
right
rigged,
number.
it's
It's
like really
nonsense.
all of them.
Right.
Look, I'm sure that you can make a poll say things that you want it to. You can tweak the data a little bit. But yeah, when every poll says
There's
something,
way too many polls out there now.
let me ask
Which is why the
Drexel-
RCP average is something that everybody looks like.
That's you always have to look at the RCP average. Let me ask Drexel sort of a very pointed question. What is the concern you think for people who are very ardent Hillary supporters in terms of the feeling of like, oh, we got this in the bag? Isn't there any
For
fear at
example,
all?
the feeling that they both have right now.
No,
That you
it's, I
can
don't even.
see.
No. What I'm saying is the idea that people think like I don't have to go out and vote. That
Right.
line's going to be too long.
Right.
So Drexel, speak a little to that, like how that has to be a real concern. Even with it, 5 points, 12 points, it could go up to 20 points. Still at the same time, people still have to go out and actually vote.
Can you hear me?
Oh, do we hear Drexel or not? Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
I'm back.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I don't, I think we can talk all day, we can joke all day just about, where we feel comfortable in terms of where Hillary Clinton is. But I think at the end of the day, we also understand the stakes and how elections actually work. At least people who talk politics on a regular basis. I could say all day, yeah, Hillary Clinton's got, she's polling well enough to where she'll probably squeak out maybe a 2 or 3 point win come election day. But that doesn't mean that Hillary Clinton's not out there doing some significant rallies. Even this week she's got Jay-Z, Cher. She's got Jay-Z, Cher, Elizabeth Warren. She's out with Michelle Obama on Thursday. So I don't think that the Clinton campaign is also in that mindset. So I think from the top down, if the campaign is not in that mindset, then the supporters aren't going to be in that mindset. I think there is some excitement over the polls, but I also don't think that we also understand that, listen, the primary is also very close, and we don't want that problem.
Sure.
And, there's a lot of Trump supporters out there, a lot of loud Trump supporters out there. But, even as Andrew Sullivan said over the weekend when he was on Bill Maher, Donald Trump is still a dangerous person. And so you have to combat that with something like, and I talk about it all the time, Donald Trump is dangerous, but Mike Pence is equally as dangerous. And that is who we really have to fight going into this election.
And I think now you can also see that there's early voting, and now you can see numbers of people going in. Like in Nevada, for instance, they're having record numbers of Democratic
I was reading about
votes
that,
in Washoe County where Reno is, and you're seeing
and
some
I
of
just-
these things
What
already.
about the silent majority of people
Well, I was
who
actually,
are...
I had a very specific question for you, Stephen, which is the idea that I think whoever people are voting for out of these two main candidates, and even people voting for third, fourth, fifth party candidates, there's a lot of statement voting. So I think that if someone's going to vote for Hillary or someone's going to vote for Trump, I don't think that it's like, oh, it's raining today, or, oh, I really don't want to. I do think that there'll be a very large turnout. I don't know exactly how it all shakes out. I think that there's a lot of indication that Trump is not going to have the kind of turnout that he needs in the states that he needs. But give us your thoughts a little bit on that in terms of it being a statement vote regardless of who you're voting for.
Yeah.
But specifically, people who just don't like Hillary and they need to vote for #NeverHillary.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think like the WikiLeaks, all the stuff that's coming out is having an impact on people who already had suspicions about Hillary Clinton. Not already pro-Hillary Clinton people who are being turned off, but people who are already on the fence. So I do think that as more stuff comes out in the media, I do think that more and more people are going to be that silent majority and maybe don't want to be ridiculed by their family and friends and in public and be loud and say I'm a Trump supporter. But I do think that they are going to go into that voting box and do that.
That's not Trump thing is
gonna
going
be-
to be.
I think it's going to be a major.
Drexel first, and then Scott, and then Mike.
Now we're getting into territory that's getting a little crazy to me. So I just want to go back to a couple of things where you talked about Texas and you talked about some of these battleground states, because I think it's less about Trump and more about the way that the Democrats have waged the 50-state campaign strategy, the Howard Dean strategy, the Bernie Sanders strategy of where they wanted to, like you mentioned today, and I know we'll talk about.
You mean an actual campaign?
An actual campaign, right? Well, I just
and the ground game,
and I mean to the point
Right.
where you brought up pre-show. We talked about things that we want to talk about today, and you brought up West Palm Beach, Florida. There was Tim Kaine out there in West Palm Beach, in certain conservative areas. There's no reason why Tim Kaine should be out there, but he did.
He did, and yes, the news story becomes only 30 people
Only 30
turned
people,
out.
but why is he there?
But in
is the
West Palm
question.
Beach, Florida, how did you find those 30 people
Right.
that wanted to go to a Tim Kaine rally?
And to the point where you've got a I think Michelle Obama's going to be in Arizona. Like, how many people have gone to Arizona?
Exactly.
And
Right.
why are they in Arizona? So it's like I said, it's less about Donald Trump for a lot of Democrats and progressives, and more about expanding this map that Bernie Sanders really had been pushing, and Howard Dean had been pushing for years. On the WikiLeaks side of things, though, I have read through pretty much everything, and I'm like, meh. I mean, if you're worried, I hate the line Hillary Clinton's emails, because at the end of the day, they're not Hillary Clinton's emails; they're John Podesta's emails. And they're campaign emails. And if you're not privy to how campaigns actually work and how campaign operatives actually talk to each other, then yeah, you're going to be a little skeptical. And I talked about this in my last show, is people are starting to see how campaigns actually work, and they don't like it.
Right.
But it's not going to stop people. Like, it's not going to stop people from doing what they do. It's like you go to work, you want a promotion, you want to be a good salesman in terms of you want to be the best salesman. You're going to do what you need to do to make the sale. We saw the Project Veritas the Project Veritas videos at the same time. Whether or not there's nuances about who is coordinating with who, blah blah blah, whatever. But at the end of the day, that there is some underhanded stuff that's happening out
That goes
in the
on, but it
in
wasn't the
on both
silent
sides.
majority. I think is made up of way more than just about the WikiLeaks stuff.
I don't think,
I
but I
agree
don't
with you in
think,
that
but I don't
sense.
think that there's.
I think there's all the other corruption stuff that's going
No,
on, and that's
no,
what
no.
the
I
silent
don't-
majority.
I don't think that there's
That's
a-
where it's making some.
Not for
some
what
waves.
Trump's doing.
Right.
That's going
I
to
don't think that there's
vote for him.
if you
Sure, I mean,
No.
I don't think
Yeah.
that the actual Trump
Okay.
supporters and Republicans. I think that I said this to somebody the other day. I think Republican women will vote for Hillary Clinton, and that will be the silent majority.
Yeah, but only like 2/3.
But it will be.
Yeah. No.
But you know. But I mean in the sense of
Yeah.
that is the silent
No,
part of
look,
it.
I think
Because
that's
somebody
a great
that wasn't
point.
going to be
somebody
voting for
that was
Hillary is not going to be voting.
Right, and I think that the
Hillary.
vocal majority that are voting for Trump are already loud enough.
Right.
Because, we could talk all day, Stephen, about who you're going to vote for, and you still might not vote for Trump at the end of the day when you go in the ballot box.
I might not vote, and a lot
And
of those
that's what I'm
women you're
saying.
talking about actually might not vote, which kind of is a
But
vote.
I
for Hillary
think, and in those WikiLeaks emails, they talked about Marco Rubio, and I said this. I said yes, that would have been a huge problem for Hillary Clinton, not because of Marco Rubio's policies, because he didn't even want to be a senator, and so I can't imagine how he's leading in Florida right now.
Which he's barely leading, by the way, 2
in Florida.
points right now.
But
very close.
if you look at the way that President Obama came in, you had this wave of African American voters really wanting to vote for President Obama. You're going to have this wave of Latino voters that's really going to want to vote for Marco Rubio, whether or not they agree with his policies or not. You got the first Latino president option. Women are going to be in that same boat for the most part when they actually get into the ballot box, and I think that going up against somebody like Trump, who has been saying these things about women. I think that when they go into the ballot box, it's going to be a little bit tougher for a woman to pull the lever for Donald Trump.
One second, Michael. To speak to Stephen's point, when it comes down to WikiLeaks, the James O'Keefe Project Veritas videos, I think that they.
Notice how I brought that up, by the way.
I do. I did notice you brought that up. I do think those things are damaging against a normal candidate. Against if you're running against Mitt Romney
It's
or
a
John
swift
McCain,
vote.
Yeah,
but
right.
you're
Exactly.
running
Yes.
against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So the stuff that's coming out about him, it's like, oh yeah, Hillary did this. Oh, some people
so
did
much
some
more
shady
tame
stuff
compared to what he's doing
but
and saying, and that's
He
what
wants to
said,
he wants to
what?
grab who
In
by
that
the
sense.
what. So
Yeah.
it kind of gets lost in that. But Michael, what was your point?
Well, a couple things. You just mentioned about the things that Trump has said about women. Just a little earlier, you were mentioning Jay-Z is going to be out with Hillary. Is Hillary going to be reading any of
No,
Jay-Z's
she's not going to be out.
lyrics?
She's not going to be out there with Jay-Z. Jay-Z's holding a concert for in
And he did
Cleveland.
come out for Obama. Obama brought him out on stage.
No, my question about that is in terms of
His lyrics.
things saying against women. Is he going to be cleaning up any of his lyrics for that?
I doubt he's
or-
going to be
He's-
out there
he's
doing
probably-
songs that are
I
doing
love the
songs that are.
selective.
But
I
he's
love the
probably
selective outrage.
no.
with that.
Jay-Z's
it's not
probably
selective.
going to say
he's not running for president.
But Jay-Z's also going to
There's a
say that
difference.
he's got 99 problems, but a vote ain't one. And that's what he knows who he's voting
I
for.
think,
Good point.
but I think it's also who else did I say? It was Cher, it was Lady Gaga. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are going to be doing concerts for Hillary Clinton over the next couple of weeks. But it's like when people talk about, oh well, Beyonce, in her lyrics, and you're like, but she's actually talking about women's empowerment, and those are her lyrics.
Not
so
in all of her songs.
Not
and I know
in-
her
but
lyrics
not in
very
all-
well.
not-
And no, not all of her songs.
But I think I know her songs
Yeah.
a little bit better. But
I can point it out where she says, lick this, kiss that,
of course
stick
she says
this,
that,
do
right?
that.
Right, and that's in
The thing is,
partition,
though,
and
is
that's
that
in-
she's on the right side.
No,
No,
that's-
she's an
that's-
entertainer. She's not running
if
for
she came
president.
out
That's a
for
difference.
Donald Trump
But
today,
what
No.
if
That would
Beyonce
be
was
immediate
running for
headlines.
president?
Oh
See,
my
That's what I'm saying.
God.
It's
Yeah.
I'm
different.
just saying if she
absolutely.
was.
No,
The-
so
you're-
anyway,
be
they're not
leading
running
both
for
of these
president.
rounds.
They're
But
entertainers.
here's
That's
the
what
thing.
Donald
So
Trump
they're
is.
so they the artists have worked with the Hillary Clinton campaign in making sure they get out the vote. They're doing a big get out the vote push this week. So all the other stuff is just.
But do you want Hillary Clinton saying, I idolize Beyonce when she's putting
I think
that
in
message
terms.
out?
I think in terms of women's empowerment.
Yeah.
In terms of what Beyonce has done. In terms of like outside of some of the lyrics, like Beyonce, if you remember where
I think she'd
Beyonce
be
started,
better
if
off
you turn, okay,
not
anyway.
saying she
So-
idolizes.
Okay, let's move.
I'm like, I just.
Well, just finish your point because I wasn't sure what you were.
No,
trying
no, it's okay because obviously Steven's in Trump reality bubble right now. Go ahead.
It depends on who says the words, whether or not you should be offended by them.
No, I'm
Sure.
saying
That's
it
not-
I
depends
think
who's
the
running for
context has a lot to
president.
do with
That's-
it. I think,
I'm saying
I
the
think
difference is
true.
who's
I
running for
think
president.
lyrics are probably.
I think
a
it's-
lot
I
to
think
do
it's-
with
lyrics.
That all
Are-
sounds to me like, yeah.
I think if President,
I think that's what
I
that
think if
sounds like.
President Obama had got out there and said
Right.
something offensive, if
Exactly.
Mitt Romney had got out there and
Jay-Z's
said
not
something
running for
offensive,
president.
if-
Beyonce's not running for
if-
president. It's.
I mean,
you know.
none of the 15 other
Donald Trump
Republican
is.
candidates got out there and
know,
said anything remotely
right.
offensive. So I don't think that our problem is going to be with those people. When I talk about when
Didn't Jay-Z used to be a drug dealer too? Crack dealer before he was a rapper?
And is Jay-Z running for president? That's what I'm saying. You're getting off topic.
Yeah, but
I'm
why
saying Donald
bring
Trump
him
is running
out
for
on who
president.
does
Well,
on
the
your
thing.
here's
national
one thing that we could
stage?
do. We could contrast and compare the multi-platinum Grammy-winning
Exactly.
artists that are performing for Hillary alongside those who are campaigning for Trump and see whose messages are better. Chachi probably did have a record out. He and Joni probably put something out.
So there was something.
Antonio Sabato.
You got Scott
Look,
Baio.
Yeah, look.
Right?
Very nice guy, Scott Baio. I haven't talked
And
to
Stephen
him in a long
Baldwin,
time.
who we met.
So one
in
thing I
Vegas.
want to ask you, Drexel, you brought up the WikiLeaks thing.
I did, yes.
And the one that just came out today, oh my gosh, the president just denied knowing anything about these emails. He read it about in the news.
No. He said he didn't know about the server.
He did no. What he said is that he heard about it on the
He
news
said
like
he heard about the
everybody
server.
else.
He heard about the server on the news like everybody
Right,
else. Yes.
and then so there's back and forth stuff between Mills and Podesta. They knew that there were emails back and forth
Yep.
between Hillary and the president. Some on
during
a
the
fake,
campaign,
No, this is before this.
this is
These-
as they're
these
ramping
are-
up for the campaign.
Right. This happened in the president made the announcement, and then the emails were that same day between Podesta and Mills.
Okay, yep.
About years previous, that there were emails between Clinton and the president.
Yes.
The president using official and the president using fake
State.gov
names.
versus Hillary Clinton. com, I guess, whatever, at HillaryClinton.com. Yes.
The president used his official email address and a fake email address, and
No, a
Mills.
pseudonym. He didn't use a fake email address. He used a
Okay,
pseudonym.
wait. Just get to what the point is.
yeah,
What you're
what's the
trying to
point?
say, because we're getting lost in it.
Yeah, those are
I wasn't
utterly
sure.
unimportant details.
Yeah, because it's an utterly important detail.
Cheryl Mills' point was,
We got to clean it up.
we got to clean this up.
Correct.
That's not an issue to you.
No.
Valid. No, that's a valid answer.
No,
It's not an issue.
and I'll tell you why. The president of the United
yeah.
States, first of all, isn't looking like if I get an email, I'm not looking at is it coming from Gmail, is it coming
Right.
from this. I also don't know where server
What, it
is
says
coming
someone's
from.
name
and I
on
don't
it,
think
or-
that President Obama, who's looking at his little BlackBerry, who
Right,
doesn't have like an
isn't
iPhone,
looking.
who's looking at his little BlackBerry, is like, oh, Hillary Clinton is sending this from HillaryClinton.com.
It's gonna say
today.
Hillary Clinton,
Like
it's
she's
gonna say her
like,
name,
like
it's gonna
he's
say-
just not gonna, so for President Obama to get out and say, oh well, I didn't know there was a server. Like I'm just hearing about the server. Hey, I didn't know where it was bouncing off from. Like that is the difference between
Right.
what did the president know and what didn't the president know? And to me, knowing the president, not personally, but just knowing that
Knowing of him, yeah.
knowing that his BlackBerry isn't like he can barely text on his text out from his BlackBerry. I don't think the president is wasting his time looking at.
Wait a second. He can bear so because he's not really tech savvy. Is
No.
Is
What
that your thing?
Because that's not what I said.
You
What I
just said
was,
he can
he's
barely.
not. I said he can barely text. I said what I'm saying is that
Doesn't-
he's not looking at where
What
the
the
email
email
is
address
coming
is or
from.
what the
He's just
server
looking
is.
at the email,
Right.
the body of the email. So it's
I think
not
that's like
consistent.
everyone. Are you looking at where everyone's email address is when you're
Right.
coming out and seeing, okay, well, what server are they sending from? It just says someone's name on it. You're not
Right.
looking at the details of
Right.
their
Anyone who
email
wants
address.
to chime in, by the way, please join us in the chat room. Our friend, on YouTube, for those of you watching live, our friend Kim K said context is a key factor when talking about speech, and I think that's a lot to do with it. We're going to talk a little bit more about some polling in a second, but I think a lot of people look at it and just go like, okay, they pretty much know the way that it's this is pretty much Hillary land for 4 years. But
No, I don't
if-
believe
no,
that.
no. I'm saying that there are a lot of people who think that.
Right.
And for someone who thinks it's absolutely impossible, there's no way that Donald Trump could win this election. Never in a million years. Just keep one fact in mind. Right now, this very second while we're talking, in Cleveland, the Chicago Cubs are playing in the World Series. So literally, anything can happen. So
But they're losing. I
They're
believe.
definitely
They're
losing.
definitely
They're
losing
losing
right now.
tonight, and they're going to get the
They're gonna
chance to
win.
lose
Yes.
at home.
Yes.
They're going to get to lose at home in front of their fans, which will be heartbreaking.
And the
there's
president
somebody-
tweeted out something very nice to Chicago Cubs, which also does not happen that often.
That's true. What I wanted to ask, actually, and Scott, it's all right if you don't know the answer, because I saw somebody write this. What do we know, and we don't have to have numbers or anything, what do we know about how Ohio's polling at the moment?
Well-
Somebody very specifically wanted to know, and I'm sorry I didn't write down your name.
That
It was
is
moving too
that
fast.
is the one that is again. Those are the two states, Ohio and Iowa, that are leaning towards Trump. But if you look at the overall averages, I still think overall it's going to go to Hillary. But yes, Ohio is definitely up there, and Iowa as far as going to Trump.
Going to Trump, yeah. So that seems like a likely one. All
It's
right,
like +1 for Trump right now in Ohio, +3 and for him in Iowa.
Now, obviously, the show is Trump versus Hillary, and we'll get back to them in a moment. Let's talk a little bit about the impact down ballot. Now, Michael, you posted online today that you received your actual ballot in the mail today.
My ballot?
Stephen, I believe you did too.
I did as well, yeah.
Right.
So,
Actually, it was I think Wednesday or
all right,
Thursday
but
of last week.
I saw
Whatever.
it today,
Right.
so I know you have it.
I did too.
So you have it. So, by the way, why is nobody going to vote? What's with all this vote by
Mail-in
mail?
ballot. I
Yeah.
actually
I'm
sent in
voting
my
Yeah,
permanent
all right.
vote by mail
Yeah,
thing
stuff to
today.
do.
I like to-
so
Yeah, that's true.
easy.
It is
Yeah.
very easy.
I know
Right.
it is, but I like to go in person. I don't know. I don't
I
like to get
actually
lost.
get it. I actually did it when I did the primary. I got my ballot and then I dropped it
Yes,
off just to
that's
make sure
what
my.
I do.
But I didn't want to get
Right,
lost.
I don't
No,
want to get
no,
lost.
no,
That's
you
my
don't
fear
See,
too.
here's the thing. I want to actually go to the
Yes.
polling place on election day. I want to
Yeah.
bring my son, and I want to put him in a little red "Make America Great" hat again, just to see if people will actually curse out a 14-month-old. I don't think they will, but I want to know if they will.
They'll give you bad.
I
In
think
Newport
looks.
Beach, they wouldn't. Where I live in
Oh,
Newport
where you live?
Beach,
Yeah, that's true.
they would thumbs up.
I think
Yeah.
the problem in California, at least for us that live here in Los Angeles, is the fact that there are so many propositions on our ballot.
Yes.
Like the
Oh,
idea
I
of like
mean-
standing in the booth
It's like
and
a-
like
that's
having to
too much.
vote.
Well, I already have it
all
pre-done.
through all
I
of,
have
like,
it ready.
yeah.
and I'll go in.
I know.
sit in my apartment and
I
just
literally
go.
spent Sunday afternoon.
No,
For people who
no,
don't,
no,
for,
no,
I've actually
You're like,
done
Michael's
that
like,
some
"That's
years.
easy for
But
me.
here's the problem with those propositions, and I know this is a local thing in California, but a lot of states have these things. Sometimes when you vote no, you're actually saying
saying
yes
yes
to
to
something you don't
something
believe in.
stupid.
Right.
No,
So
that's
make
very
sure
true.
you are reading
Yeah.
the
Yes.
Yes.
Do
100
research.
pamphlets they
But,
send you out.
Research before you vote anyway.
I'll start with Michael. How important is it for either party, those down ballot races, for people that don't like the top of the ticket? How do you get to say, look, vote for whoever you want at the top, make your statement, vote, but seriously, vote Republican or vote Democrat at the bottom? How important is that, and are we actually seeing those efforts on either or both sides?
Well, for a guy like me, the idea of a President Trump or a President Clinton is not exactly, but almost equally stomach churning.
Sure. It's like minor gradations of. It's like having different kinds of nausea. Like,
Exactly.
I had food poisoning
Do you
from
want
this restaurant
brain
versus
cancer or do you want liver
Yikes.
cancer?
I said food poisoning. Mine was a little bit less harsh.
Well, I was going to go that far.
Yeah.
Anyway, for me, the down ballot stuff is substantially important. The narrative that kind of helped put Trump where he was is that Republicans don't win anymore, blah, blah, blah. Well, ask these guys. They know Republicans have been killing it. 08, 2010, 2012, and 14.
Not 08.
Maybe not 08. You're
10,
right. 10,
midterm.
12,
But in the
14.
midterms, 10, 12,
Yes,
14,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we're at historic levels of red in state houses, governor's mansions, and in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trump is the one that's most likely to do some damage to those down
Well,
ballot.
my
Yeah.
point is that Trump has been saying that Republicans have not been winning, which is not true. But if whether
Not at the
it's
presidential level.
not at the presidential
No.
level, whether
Not
it's
when
a
you go back.
President Trump or a President Clinton, it's essential to have, in my opinion, Republicans that would hold either of their feet to the fire. Well, you look at the numbers right now,
Yeah.
and it does not look good. I mean, it's very possible that the Democrats are going to take over the Senate.
Yep.
I think it's extremely unlikely that they'll take over the House,
Yeah.
but they'll probably pick up some gains.
I was
They
going to
will.
say that
They'll definitely pick
there'll
up
be some
seats.
movement there,
Yes.
and the Senate seems more likely. And
Yes.
look, I agree with the idea that a lot of Americans do like the idea of some kind of divided government, but
We're all gridlock fans now.
Yes.
yeah, right, yeah, exactly. So I
Except
don't know.
when we're not.
Right, exactly. So I think it's interesting that it's for someone to decide that, those things matter. I wonder, I don't know that they'll keep tabs, but I wonder how many no votes there'll be at the top of the ticket. Not even a protest vote, just like, no, I'm just going to skip it and I'm going to vote for Proposition 55 and, my local
It would be
county
interesting
sheriff.
to see. My
Yeah.
guess would be this will be one of the, I don't know, of the last 10 or 15 presidential races, one of the highest percentages. I mean, there's a bunch of Democrats that are disgusted at what happened to Bernie Sanders, that he's not there, and are not voting.
Hey, one of
for-
them's not here tonight.
and they're not going to vote for Grandma.
Well, she is, but she's
And then
not.
there's
Yeah.
there's
a lot of people have coalesced around her.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to,
but there are a lot of people. There are a lot of
Is your
Democrats.
mic on again? Or
It is.
Okay,
There are a
sorry.
lot of Democrats that aren't voting for Grandma, and you can't
I
say
think
that
they're-
that's not
And
true.
a lot of the
Just like there's a
well,
lot of Republicans that
lot
are
more
not going to vote for
A lot
Donald
higher
Trump.
Republicans.
what was your
Republicans
point,
than
Drexel?
Democrats. Well, there's a
Higher.
couple of points. Michael brought up why Republicans have been really killing it in these last couple elections. And it has a lot
Midterm.
to do with gerrymandering and Republican legislatures
2010.
gerrymandering their states. So it's more about, that's the actual election rigging right there.
But it was
Yes,
the
they talk about-
Democrats.
let me-
When the Democrats are in control, gerrymandering is a fact no matter who's
Well,
in
Right, it is,
control.
and that's
It
why
is a fact.
2020 is going to be a lot harder
It's
for
gonna
Republicans.
right, and I think
it's
the
a
part of the
presidential
reason
year.
I think Democrats will have a harder time winning the House over the next
Yes.
couple of elections because
Yeah.
of the way that Republican legislators have
Right.
kind of gerrymandered their states.
But you're right. Both parties do that.
They
take
do
advantage
that
of it,
back
and
and
that's
forth.
Right.
I think it was
basically-
just
that's
I think it was
nothing.
just done more in these last couple of over these past few years. Now
How can that possibly be?
Well, I mean,
Are you dismissing the fact that
I'm just
Americans were upset in 2010 and 2012 with Barack Obama?
I think that they were certainly upset. A majority, not majority. I think there were a lot of Americans that were
Because he
upset
won
about
re-election in
how that too.
12.
He did, and by
But
a
it
large
was
margin-
Democrats
margin.
that controlled all of those state houses before Republicans won that were responsible for the districts that those Republicans won. I mean, now, today...
I don't think Democrats would gerrymander themselves out.
No, it was Republicans that voted them out.
No, I was going to say in
You're
2010.
saying,
Okay.
you're saying that 10, 12, and 14 a wash of red across the country in state houses, governors' houses, and in Congress
Right.
were because of gerrymandered districts.
No, I said
No,
that.
10,
I said,
yes.
10, yes. I said in
Absolutely.
the
When the
house, and then
yes.
and then because of gerrymandering in the house, I'm saying the Democrats won't make gains because of gerrymandering in the House. Now across statewide governor houses, yeah, 39 Republicans control
30,
governor houses.
yeah, it's like 30
something high.
one.
And so I
It's
think
the
the
highest level.
Democrats not only have a deficit in the House, they have a deficit in state legislatures. They have a deficit in governors'
But
houses.
governors
and they've got to-
are a little more unique that you can't quite. They're state by state. Like you have a Republican governor right now in Massachusetts. He's not the same type of Republican that you would have
Right.
in the South, and
Right.
vice versa. You have a Democratic governor in West Virginia in a place that's highly Republican, and likely they're going to vote for a Democrat again. So governor's race is a little more unique. But yes, we have a highest level of Republican governorships that we've ever had. But
I mean,
And
I'm
that's
saying
gonna
change
I'm,
a
agreeing,
little
I'm
bit.
agreeing with the fact that Democrats will have a harder
Yeah,
time
absolutely.
making gains in the House. On the Senate side, there are some significant gains that they can make, and I do
Right.
think that Trump is affecting. Like Kelly Ayotte should not be losing her race in New Hampshire right now.
No question.
You know what I mean? Like that is one
That's
that you're like,
definitely-
and I actually like Kelly Ayotte.
well, I like Maggie Hassan
and
too.
I like
she's
Maggie
the governor of
Hassan.
New Hampshire, and she's a
Right,
pretty
and
popular governor.
but I mean, if you compare like the women senators, with the exception of Joni Ernst, aren't as bad as the Republican males in the Senate in terms of grit. Like they tend to want to work a little bit harder and like want to work a little bit more across the aisle. So I have no problem with Olympia Snow. Had no problem with Olympia Snow. Had no problem with
Susan Collins
Susan
in
Collins.
Maine.
Had no problem with Kelly Ayotte. So I think those are the races that are a little bit different. Marco Rubio, like we said, in terms of Patrick Murphy. Richard Burr shouldn't be polling nearly as close to
So how
Deborah-
much of that do you think
Deborah
is as a
Ross.
result of Trump?
I think that has a huge. I think Trump
Yeah.
has had.
I mean,
a huge,
I would put it
Yes.
in the 85 to 90% of the reason why.
Absolutely, but I also think
For
it
some
goes
of
back.
them.
It goes back to what I said earlier, just about that 50-state strategy. I think that Democrats have put a lot more emphasis on winning back the Senate because they haven't had the Senate for a long time. Excuse me, and to the point where Republicans today are putting another $25 million to try to help those senators, so they know what's happening. Like people are not stupid; they know what's happening right now. So I think that, and they see what Donald Trump's doing to their candidates.
We only have a few minutes, so I want to kind of move to a major point, which is this idea that, we see all these things that Trump is doing down ballot, what a drag he is on the ticket. I guess I mean that in both senses of being a drag. But basically, the issue really comes down to, what is it about Hillary that she's not polling like 80-20 to this guy? And it comes down to, there is a lot of the mistrust. And, we don't have time to go through a lot of the things, but we alluded to WikiLeaks. We have mentioned the Project Veritas videos. And I know it's easy to dismiss, but there are actual claims against her in the movie Clinton Cash, which we joke around about. But there are people who are very concerned about those things. And, that's kind of why Stephen mentions it so much, because it does get dismissed. And, because we only have a few minutes, I want to give Stephen the chance to sort of speak to your understanding as that it literally, I don't know about literally, it seems virtually, it's very close to the fact that Trump can do anything and people will just not vote for Hillary.
Yeah,
They're-
the never Hillary people.
Yeah,
and the
they're
Trump,
just that
big-time
hardcore.
Trump supporters.
So talk a little bit about that, that
Yeah.
point of view.
Well,
while
that
we have a
that
few minutes.
documentary, has a lot of claims against Hillary. There's 3 in particular that have been confirmed by particular media outlets, and I'll just read the quick little bullet points.
As long as it's quick, just say what they are, yeah.
Lucrative Haiti gold mining permit awarded to Hillary's brother. This was confirmed by the Washington Post. Her brother had no experience in disaster relief, his contracting team. And then the Keystone Pipeline support in return for $2 million in speaking fees. Bill Clinton began a string of speeches for the bank starting just 4 days after Hillary was nominated as Secretary of State, resulting in over $2 million in speaking fees. And the big third one is the Russian purchase of U.S. uranium assets in return for $145 million in contributions to the Clinton Foundation. In the run-up to the approval of the deal by the State Department, 9 shareholders of Uranium One just happened to make $145 million in donations to the Clinton Foundation. Moreover, the New Yorker confirmed that Bill Clinton received $500,000 in speaking fees from a Russian investment bank with ties to the Kremlin around the same time.
Okay.
Here's
So,
the
yeah,
problem I
go
have
ahead.
with this. I had a little bit of money this summer, and I was trying to figure out. I wanted to do some. I want to do a charitable donation, and I looked up. There's some places that you can do for mosquito netting and stuff that for almost nothing they have like Save a Life for $1
It's great.
for malaria. There's also a similar thing for food, that for a little over $1 a day, you can feed a family of 4. But what I did is I sent my money to the Clinton Global Initiative because I realized that rather than give the money directly to the people that are actually putting food in the bag and put it in people's mouth, if I give $1,000 to the Clinton Global Initiative, roughly $70 ends up making its way to one of these fun things. But I can get a little cutout, maybe a picture of me next to Bill.
You put a
can
couple
get a-
zeros on it.
I
you
knew
get
that this.
you get access. You get a
I
meeting.
knew that this was a joke when you said you had some money over the summer. Basically, though, the points that Stephen's making, the points that are represented in Clean Cash, is this what you tend to hear the most from the never Hillary, the always Trump, the alt-right, all these things? Like, these are specific things. It's
Not
like,
from the alt-right folks. I don't.
Yeah.
I get.
you don't talk to them.
Well, they come after me because
They do, actually.
They
Yeah.
in a huge possible way. The issue is, she's just unbelievably corrupt. Just the news that just came out a few days ago about the $12 million Morocco thing. The head of Morocco, they're not giving.
We only have a couple minutes.
They're
Keep that
not
in
giving the Clinton Foundation $12 million because that is the best place for them to help the planet. Gutter didn't give Bill Clinton $1 million birthday gift because they just loved him so much.
Right.
It is prima facie proof of pay to play.
Yeah, it
and
goes
everybody
around the
knows
world.
that.
It goes around the world.
Guys that support her,
Colombia,
they don't care
Nigeria.
about this stuff at all. They've got minutia. There's no exact proof.
well,
it's a really
speculation.
good that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I guess
but
what
the
it comes
reality
down
is
to-
that she punches all the buttons, and for most Democrats, it's just not an issue.
Right.
For those of us that are disgusted by the idea of a corrupt government to be an insider cronyist, pay to play, that if you give a certain amount of money to the right kind of people, you'll be in the right kind of position, it's disgusting.
In the final minute that we have for Drexel and Scott, I just sort of, obviously there's no time to talk about those specific issues,
Right.
but it's the appearance, the assumption that there's something wrong with Hillary, there's something crooked, everything that they're talking about. Yes, the fact that Trump just calls her Crooked Hillary. How much of that is the problem? Like, why she isn't polling at 80% or whatever? Is it?
I
Go
was going
ahead,
to say,
Scott.
taking all that away
Yeah.
is that the country is very partisan anyways. If I was to just run with an R next to my name in Alabama and never campaign, I'm going to win
You're gonna win.
Alabama. So there's part of it, there's a partisan thing, and
You
people are going to be
heard
in
it
one
here
camp.
first, Alabama. Vote
Right.
Scott Moore
Right,
at
if you have
S-Man80.
a camp of people that are going to say, I hate Hillary, and the never Hillary people.
Sure.
Yes, I get it. She's got a long history, and people have hated her and Bill since going back to the beginning. But look, they find a way to win because they know what they're doing. And the point is that you have partisan people that are going to hate her, are going to dig through. There's partisan people that are going to hate Trump and never vote for him either. And that's the difference between landslide elections back in like '84 with Reagan and '64 with Johnson.
Yeah.
You just don't have people crossing party lines as much that you used to.
I'll let Drexel finish, but you mentioned '84. I saw a great picture today. You know how Trump's always talking about how big his rallies are. There's a photo of an enormous Walter Mondale rally, one of the biggest
Right.
rallies ever.
Who
And
they
they're
thought
like,
he was gonna
they're like,
win.
wow, this is huge.
Yes.
I actually think that might have been Dan Josephs or one of the guys that I know through your show. But anyway, somebody posted it, and it was like, oh yeah, that guy won and became president, right? Look at his big rally.
Right.
And yeah,
Oh no,
we'll
it
wrap
didn't
it.
have
Exactly.
anything to do with
Yeah,
that.
we'll wrap in a moment. But Drexel, sorry, I wanted to give you the final word before I plug next week's show.
Well, you know how I feel about the other stuff, but
Yeah, but-
That's exactly what I'm not even going there.
I think, yeah, I'm not even going to touch that. But I do think that part of Hillary Clinton's problem, and I've said this from the beginning, at least in this campaign, is the fact that we live in this world where we're constantly on Facebook. Our private life is out there. We talk about what we eat. We talk about, like, I just bought these new Toms, and they say step out and vote on them. You know, like
Nice.
the stuff that I would post, and the secrecy that surrounds Hillary Clinton. She's not in this. She so wants to be in this bubble of hers that she doesn't know how to let somebody else step outside of that, and just to, like, it'd be so easy for her to just say, well, let me tell you what I did with these emails. Let me tell you what happened with this. Like, they're just so explainable. You're like, okay, great. That's it? That's all it was? Okay, great. When WikiLeaks released those Goldman Sachs emails, I literally was like, "That's it? Oh, okay, that's great." I mean, literally, I was like, "That's it? Oh, that's like if they'd have come out."
That's
out
something
of,
she's been
it's
investigating for
something
years.
right, and so
and
you're
there's
like, "Oh,
nothing
okay, that's
come
it."
They,
So
they read like a politician's email.
They do.
right.
Well, we do have to go, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for sitting over on the couch today. Scott Moore.
Yeah,
It's hot over here,
The
too.
couch of ascent.
You guys have less lights on you. Scott
Still
Moore,
hot.
Drexel Heard, at SMan80, at Drexel Heard. Stephen Helmkamp at Stephen Helmkamp. Our special guest, Michael Hausum, at MP House. I am Christian Bladt, at Christian DMZ. We will be back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific. That's our last show before Election Day.
Crazy.
Can't believe it's finally here.
nuts.
We will
Thank
see you
God.
next time. Thanks, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.